Planning commissioners, a ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias since the last meeting?
No.
Okay, seeing none, then I will turn it over to staff for a summary.
Thank you, sir. So just as a quick overview, at the May 25th Planning Commission meeting, we introduced the application for the 116 unit apartment complex off of Weldwood Drive. Had a lengthy discussion about the project, the details, how it meets the decision criteria, and also discussed the public comment that was received at the time prior to the hearing regarding concerns about the traffic analysis and privacy concerns. During that meeting, we had the city's traffic engineer present additional information along with a clarification memo, which was included as part of the record to identify clarification for those concerns as part of the letter that was received. However, as part of that letter, there was a request from the member of the public to continue the public hearing to allow for him to have his questions answered further. Based off of that, we entered into what was called the 777 rule, which provided 7 calendar days for any member of the public to provide written public testimony. We did not receive any written testimony during those first 7 days. We then moved on to the next 7 days, which allowed for any member of the public to provide a rebuttal to any of the testimony that was provided during the public hearing or those first 7 days. We did not receive any testimony at that point in time. And then we moved on to the next 7 days, which was for the applicant to provide any final comments, which they did do. We provided their final comments and letter to the Planning Commission for review and also posted it to the city's website for the public. At the conclusion of those 7 days, the public hearing and public testimony portion is closed. And so before the Planning Commission tonight is the final deliberation of the record of all the comments that were received, and if the Planning Commission feels appropriate to make a decision tonight. So with that, I will answer any further questions and am available for assistance.
Okay, then we will open the deliberation portion of our hearing. All discussion will be amongst us. Any questions, any concerns?
Have no inquiry, no comments?
Not since the public hearing.
So Kelly, my only question and a little bit of a concern, I know Ron touched on it last month, but I quite honestly don't remember all he said. The consideration for the traffic signal at Weldwood and Cascade. Mm-hmm. He said at this point in time, the city has determined it's not a necessary element.
Correct.
If the rest of the developable property in that vicinity is developed, of course, at this point in time, we have no idea what it might be. Mm-hmm. Would that create a different issue to the point where a signal would be necessary?
It could in the future, based off of future developments that are not yet planned or anticipated. The traffic signal originally discussed as part of developments in the past was associated with the understanding that Weldwood Drive would punch through to Main Street. Right. It was determined through the TSP and through this project application that punching through to Main Street is not a viable option or a needed option based off of the existing traffic patterns and the ultimate need of having to acquire additional property from adjacent properties to be able to make that happen. So the engineering department with the transportation system plan evaluation determined that punching through Weldwood was no longer necessary. So you're not pulling in traffic from Main Street, which would increase the traffic in that area to trigger that signal requirement. Okay. So because of that, a signal at that intersection is no longer under consideration based off of existing and anticipated conditions from what we understand as it sits now. Now, as the city further grows and develops within the urban growth boundary and to the south, ultimately, there's going to be more traffic, as is always whenever there is a natural growth progression through development. And the city will continue to look at that intersection and pay attention to the traffic counts. And as development goes, there will ultimately be a transportation impact analysis for a future development not associated with this project that could identify that we've met a threshold where a signal is warranted at that point.
Okay.
But we're not there yet.
Has other developments been assessed for future light?
From my understanding, they have been in that area, and it would be up to the engineering department to identify what occurs associated with those assessments that had occurred.
Okay. That, I guess, is my concern, that if other developments have been assessed, is it not appropriate to also assess this one?
No, because the traffic signal is no longer warranted or needed. It was identified under previous developments at that intersection that a traffic signal was going to be warranted in the future. And so you then have to pay into your fair share, like we have done with some similar projects throughout the city. It's now determined that a traffic signal is not warranted at that site, at that intersection. And so therefore an assessment with this project is not appropriate. The question that the engineering department is going to have to identify is what to do with the assessments that were previously made for the other properties.
So a new development could trigger the traffic study, but we can't go back and assess anything on this.
Correct. Yes.
Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of the fund. I have no idea, how that works.
I don't know
but
enough
that
about
was
it
where I
either.
was going, was if it's not going to be used, the other developments, will they be refunded? I don't know how that works.
Mr. Chairman, this is Attorney John Kennedy. I can tell you that that's being addressed at this point, and it technically then is not an issue with respect to this hearing.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't hear what he said.
They are independently addressing that issue with the other property owners that have paid into that assessment, but he's politely reminding us to stay in our bounds of decision criteria as well.
But actually it was, because where I was going was, is it fair to assess one without the other?
It would have been fair to assess those previous properties because there was an understanding under the condition anticipated that a traffic signal was required. Conditions have changed, and so therefore it's not appropriate to assess a fee when a traffic signal is not anticipated anymore, and the rest of the other properties would be handled independently in a different scenario.
At one time, could we have worded that into the approval?
For
Future assessment.
no, we need to evaluate the criteria of the decision based off of existing and planned conditions. And it is no longer a planned condition that it's anticipated that that intersection is signalized. And so we can't condition a potential fee on a project to be assessed at a later date if there's no trigger for that need.
Okay.
And if I could just say, I wasn't cutting it off. The answer is obviously yes. We cannot input a fee on part of the properties and not the others. The only thing I was reminding the commission is that while there may be a general statute that we have to interpret as it relates to those that have already paid into it, I'm not saying that one way or the other, whether that's been specifically addressed or a decision's been made on how to deal with those other properties.
Okay, good. Any other questions or concerns? Do you feel that the criteria, that the application has met the criteria? I see
Yes.
one.
I think it's met the criteria.
All right,
and
everybody
conditions
agrees?
and requirements.
All right, then one of you prepare to make a motion.
If I could cut in really quick, just for the record and for the purposes, the applicant back on May 24th submitted a letter requesting modifications to certain findings and conditions. During the hearing, we did identify that staff has reviewed those conditions and modification requests and was in agreement with them. And that has since also been ensured that the Planning Commission was able to review the letter And so a motion before you tonight would be to, if the planning commission feels that the application should be approved, it should be, the request would be to have it approved with the modifications proposed in that letter.
I'll do the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move the planning commission approve the proposed administrative review of AR 2102 for the 116 unit apartment complex, adopting modified findings for the decision criteria and conditions of development with the modified language proposed by the applicant in a letter submitted May 24th, 2021, and direct staff to draft an order of decision with the modified findings and conditions for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, and before we vote on that, I need to make one correction. The agenda that I read from has the wrong hearing number. So be it corrected to AR-21-03. Oh, I'm sorry, 02.
02.
Yes.
03 is the wrong number.
So the motion was correct. It's just
The motion was
Okay,
correct.
good.
Correct.
I didn't want to read it again.
All right. Any other concerns, any other discussion? Seeing done, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that will close hearing AR-21-02. All right, all further discussion will be just among planning commissioners on other planning commission business, if there is any.
Okay. Welcome back to the travel station.
Thank you.
Next month, we're not going to be at the travel station. We are getting some much needed improvements to the hearing technology in the room. And so next month we'll be under construction for that. But we are anticipating as of August, we will be back full time, at least with the planning commission and staff present. And then based off of the governor's and the state's requirements for social distancing and occupancy, whether or not those still exist, the public should be able to participate as well. From my understanding, we are still going to continue having a hybrid option. And so we should have that available for the public to participate via Zoom, as well as watching it on the YouTube live stream as well. So sorry, welcome back, but see you in a couple of months.
Do we have hearings scheduled
Nothing in
for next
August.
month?
We do. We have one public hearing item for subdivision on Jaden Drive. We have also the start of the Planning Commission training series, which will be interest, bias, meeting requirements, what's considered a quorum, all of those good things, which will be good timing as Mr. Munn will be our newest planning commissioner starting that month. We do have 2 to 3 applicants for the planning commission to fill other vacant spots. So I will be reaching out to you guys to figure out who wants to be on the interview panel for those. The goal would be to try to get that done before the next meeting as well, so that we can get it on the council agenda for the July meeting so that they can start in July to participate as part of the training sessions as well. And
I can help with that if you want me to.
okay. Anybody else that's in the room want to help?
Well, let's volunteer Jeremy. He's not here to defend himself.
Depending on when it is, I can be pretty flexible. So
Okay. Then we'll get that situated. And then I'm also, depending on time allotment, going to be bringing back to you guys a work session on fueling station regulations and identifying those boundaries that we want to place on it, and see what we come up with if we're going to be comfortable with that as the next phase for that. It will not be an ordinance. It'll be very similar to what we did for House Bill 2001, where we want to get your feedback again, and then we'll go from there.
Well, all we're doing is putting together the recommendation for the city council. So it isn't something that,
It will be, yeah. So it'll ultimately end up in an ordinance, which will include a code change. But as the planning commission, who is the guiding commission for the development code, will want to get your direct feedback, and then we'll create an ordinance for your recommendation, and then the city council's full approval. And then any questions for me?
What would you like to be asked?
Nothing.
All right, if there isn't anything else, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
it's got to be the shortest meeting we've had in a long time.
We had one that was